Please be seated. Please turn off your cell phones. On October 13th, 2016, Rabbi Sager of blessed memory introduced the Hudi Gross Memorial Lecture at Duke University, sponsored by Sam Gross in honor of Sam Levine, and told the story of how Pearl's husband, Sam, said to the quite young Rabbi Sager in 1978, "I would love to learn some Agnon together. I'll come to the house. I'll bring orange juice." And Sam came over to the house and they started to read. And when they puzzled over a word, Sam Levine would take out his notebook and a mechanical pencil. Kids, you can talk to your parents afterward about what that is. And said, "I'll need to consult Hudi. I'll need to consult Hudi." He said, as they got to each word, Rabbi Sager sort of wondered, "Is Hudi a dictionary? What is this?" "Oh, you don't know Hudi? Okay." And that night, Sam and Rabbi Sager read the opening paragraph of an Agnon story called Tehillah. It begins, "Zikna achat hayta b'Yerushalayim." There was an old woman in Jerusalem. "Zikna na'eh shekamota lo re'item mimechem." Never in your life had you seen such a beautiful old woman. Tzadeket hayta, she was righteous. V'chachama hayta, and she was wise. V'chinunit hayta, and she was full of grace. V'anvanatanit hayta, and she was modest. Or einaha chesed v'rachamim v'kamte paneha bracha v'shalom. The light in her eyes was compassion and kindness, and the wrinkles on her face were blessing and peace. Ilmale she'en hanashim yecholot lihidamot lemalachim hayiti mename ota lemalach Elokim. Were it not that women cannot be compared to angels, I would have likened her to an angel of God. V'od zot hayta ba, zrizut shel almut, and there was another quality in her, the vigor of youth. Ilmale bignei zikuna she'aleha lo nikar ba shemetz ziknut, were it not for the garments of old age that she wore, one would not have detected the slightest smudge of aging in her. I'm going to show you a picture. This was from a few days ago. It's one of these wheelchairs that can go on the sand. And she dangled her feet in the water and came home and read a book and closed her eyes. That first paragraph that Sam Levine and Steve learned together 48 years ago down the street over orange juice? Did they know they were reading about Pearl? They knew. They knew. I call forward Cynthia and Amy to offer words about their mom. This is here.
Hey everybody, I'm Amy. I'm the middle daughter, if anybody doesn't know, and I don't think I've stood in the synagogue since my bat mitzvah. You need this.
I'm going to move these forward. There we go.
Can y'all hear? Yeah, okay. My mom was an extraordinary woman in the simplest of ways. She was utterly clear on what was important to her community, her family, her friends, and she loved them all so much. Love for her was action. She listened, sitting at the Ward Street kitchen table for hours with neighbors, her friends, family, kids of friends, and sometimes people she hardly knew. She showed up at hospitals, brought food, went wherever was needed, whenever needed. She famously traveled across the country to spend weeks helping with the newborn babies of cousins and of others. My mom didn't expect life to be without challenges, but she was clear on her priorities, and she met the challenges with unassuming creativity and grace. When a new school needed to be found, but there wasn't money for private schools, she finagled my brother into Chapel Hill public schools. When music lessons were needed but too costly, she exchanged them for carpool duty. When there was no getting around the need for more money, she went back to work, even when it required her to pass the dreaded Duke typing test. To be honest, I think that was the thing she worked hardest for and was most scared of her entire life. She and my dad were a team, and he adored her. When my dad wanted to spend a year in Israel on sabbatical, she packed up a house and 4 kids from a toddler through high school age, kids' bikes, clothes, toaster ovens, and towels, and got us all moved into a 3-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in Rehovot for a year. When later she needed another job, she revived her old lab skills and went to work for Sam Gross in his genetics lab, my Uncle Sam, a partnership that somehow worked beautifully and lasted for years. My mom was so smart and endlessly curious about people. When she wondered why people did what they did, she really wanted to know. She was a scientist in all things, but real science. She did not tolerate anything she thought was mishigas, like, for example, expiration dates on food containers. I truly never heard her say anything bad about anyone that she actually knew. Politicians are a whole other story. She was incapable of remembering gossip and saw the best in everyone. My mom loved art and music, especially Yitzhak Perlman. She was an incredible knitter and embroiderer, making beautiful talitot for all of her kids and grandkids. My mom loved Jon Stewart to pieces, and he got her through many hard times. She deeply loved Jewish holidays and traditions, but was confused by the purpose of the word spiritual. She loved us all, but her love for her grandchildren, Rachel and Avi, Sam and Adam, was something to behold. She was endlessly fascinated by who they were and are and who they would become, and nothing brought her more joy than the time she spent with them. She was an incredible model of how to live a life. When I moved to Austin about 40 years ago, I did my very best to recreate the kind of life she created. It wasn't as easy as it looked. My mom dearly loved our Austin community of friends, and many of our friends there loved her so much. My mom never stopped growing and learning. She might find new ideas challenging, but she would think about it, have endless discussions, and often evolve to a different place. I loved her very much, and I can't imagine this world without her. I want to take a minute to thank my sisters, Beth and Cindy, for their care of my mom, each in their own way. A lot falls on family members who live close by, and I know, and my mom knew, how fortunate she was to have them there. Beth's presence in Durham was a great, great comfort to her. I also want to thank Naika Riggins, my mom's extraordinary caregiver. She made my mom's final months immeasurably better with her love and care, and we all cannot believe how lucky we were that she came into our lives when she did. We are forever grateful. Thank you all so much. And Cindy has a few words.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for saying the most important things. My mom was unreasonably persistent about keeping up with the news, and she was a night owl. Her routine was to stay up late and watch television news shows before going to bed. I thought this was a terrible idea and kept suggesting that she watch nice, calm, charming shows, more like Gilmore Girls, before going to bed, but to no avail. She cared too much about keeping tabs on all the ways the world was breaking apart and hoped till the end that reasonable minds would prevail. Her own opinions and perspective evolved over time as she kept learning, thinking, and discussing. I may be oversharing here, but with the threats to democracy that I see all over the place, one of the things that I find hardest to take is that this all happened at the end of my mom's life. And she was unlikely to see things get better. I feel offended on her behalf that the world couldn't just behave for her sake. A few weeks ago, I was visiting, and she again started talking about a news show she had seen. She told me about an interview she had heard with an author that really moved her, and she wanted that book. She said it was by Rachel somebody, the mother of one of the October 7th hostages. And I said, was it Rachel Goldberg Poland? And she said, yes, that's it. I told her, I'm sure I can find the book for you if you really want it. But you know, it's going to be a tough, heartbreaking book to read. And she said, yes, she was sure, no question in her mind, she wanted that book. And I'm thinking, on the one hand, maybe I would rather get her a fun, lighter book instead. But on the other hand, I myself am a fan of Rachel Goldberg Poland, a brilliant, wise woman who endured unspeakable grief, yet understood that Palestinian suffering was also real. And Mom was acutely and painfully aware that this was an important thing that we need to try to understand and grapple with. And it was something connected to us. As a footnote, the name of the book is When We See You Again. And by the time I saw her the following week, she had finished reading it.
Beth.
Call forward Beth Levine.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank everyone for being here today, and a special thanks to the core group who were always there for my mom towards the end. First and foremost, her caregiver, Naika, who was always there for my mom towards the end, and she was such a backbone for Amy and me. Larry Kodak, who took her to so many appointments, both before Naika started and was my backup when Naika couldn't make it for the very few times that happened. And Diane Sasson, who took the load off of Larry after she and Jack moved to the forest at Duke. I would like to highlight a few shared experiences I had with my mom. There have been times over the years I was injured or feeling down, and staying with my mom always gave me the sense of protection and comfort, like when I was a child. Mom had a funny habit. She'd tell you to do something just as you were starting to do it. Take a couple Fridays, for example. I picked her up from dialysis and brought her back to my house for Shabbat dinner. Right after I got out of the car and turned to open the back door for Dash, she said, "Don't forget the dog." And speaking of animals, she was a nocturnal one. She loved her Jon Stewart, her Stephen Colbert, and her late night snacks. And now onto her star qualities. She was the mom of all moms. The day after Sam Gross passed away, I again picked her up from dialysis and said, "What should we do?" And we both agreed at the same time, go to the Grosses. Not knowing that Rabbi Graber had just arrived to their house to prepare them for Sam's funeral. At the end, Mom stood up, gave Rabbi a kiss on the head, and said, "You're such a good boy." I'll end with a few hard things towards the end. Mom faced challenges with tremendous grace. As she got up in years, so many very close friends passed away. Hoodie left us in 2014, and within the past year, Monsieur Lakin, Sam Gross, and Yonina Rosenthal followed. Mom took all of their deaths especially hard. She was the last one of her peers to go, and being the last one standing did not feel right to her. I love you, Mom. Thank you so much for always being my rock, and rest in peace next to Dad.
I'm Kenny. I'm the youngest of the siblings. And I want to thank all of you so much for coming today. Those who are close, those who came from afar. This is a community that my mom loved deeply. My mom was a model of community engagement. She was involved. She was reliable. She was someone that people could count on. I'm a therapist, and all the time I see what it can look like when people grow up with parents who just didn't function very well. My family was far from perfect, like all families, but my sisters and I had two incredibly together, loving, competent parents. My mom was someone I could always count on to be there when I needed her, to be involved, maybe sometimes a little too involved. But she was always there for me and for so many others as well. One of the stories I always tell about her is when she met my father, she had already been accepted to a biology graduate program. My father had just started his PhD at Harvard, while her program was somewhere in Western Massachusetts, and this was before there was any sort of interstate highway system. She was faced with a real choice: pursue a career in science or marry my father and have a family. This was early 1950s. Women going to graduate school was exceedingly uncommon, particularly in the sciences. But my mom had little patience for societal norms that she thought were silly, and she deeply loved science. She nonetheless chose to get married, raise a family, setting aside what undoubtedly would have been a brilliant career in science. And I'm sure she knew that that's what she could have done. Many people in her situation might have had regrets, or maybe some bitterness about the limited choices she had. My mom never expressed anything remotely like that, not even for a moment. She lived in the present, and she taught me so much about the value of committing fully to the life decisions that we make. I don't actually know if at some level she ever wondered what her life might have looked like in an alternative universe, where she had had more choices. She did, as Amy said, eventually went back to work in Sam Gross's lab, but it was never the career in science she might have had. In the next generation, my siblings and I had far greater choices. I suspect it might have been affirming for her that both Amy and I, who had kids, both chose to be stay-at-home parents and raise our children. We made the same decision she did, even when we had other options. What comes most to mind when I think about my mom is her curiosity. That was her scientific nature. To inquire, to ask questions, to stay open. What that meant for us, her children, is that we got to see our mom keep evolving right up until the end. She never got entrenched. She was always willing to consider new ideas. In 2014, I brought her with me to the south of France for the wedding of two of my closest friends, Sahar and Martine. Sahar's mother lived in Cairo, and Martine's mother was not able to attend. The wedding, it wasn't in Paris. We were in a tiny village called Montargis in the south of France, middle of nowhere, where very few people spoke English, and the foods and rituals were unlike anything my mom had encountered before. Martine later told me how much she loved watching my mom just marvel at everything new around her. But my mom wasn't just there as any other guest. She was in a particular role. My mom became the mother that Sahar and Martine wouldn't have otherwise had on their wedding day. My mom had 4 kids of her own, but she also kept on taking on new children. She seemed to have an endless capacity for caring for all the people who matter most to us. That is, of course, especially true of her love for her grandchildren, Rachel, Avi, Sam, and Adam, who all brought so much joy to my mother's life. What I take most from my mom is the value of caring, that people and principles matter more than things, that knowing what's important and staying focused on that is its own kind of discipline. She modeled what it looks like to be not just kind and loving, but solid, reliable, someone whose word can be counted on. My mother set an impossibly high standard, and if I can come close to that, that is the best way I know to honor her. Thank you.
A selection from Psalm 90. Yemei shnotenu bechem shiv'im shana v'im bigvurot shmonim shana. 70 years our years may number. 80 years if granted the vigor. Life quickly passes and flies away. Limnot yamenu ken hoda v'navi levov chachma. Teach us to use all of our days that we may attain a heart of wisdom.
representing the grandkids. We will hear from Rachel.
I'm Rachel. Pearl was my bubby. It was extraordinary to be her granddaughter. Her love was such a force in my life. I spent most of my college breaks staying with my bubby, and every night we had the same routine. We'd watch The Daily Show with Jon Stewart at 11 p.m. And then, because I inherited her sleep schedule, we'd stay up talking until at least 2 a.m. We'd talk about different things, politics a lot of the time. We'd talk about values. I'd ask about her life. She would always ask about my friends. But also, sometimes, I'd bring her big life fears and anxieties, choices I was afraid of choosing wrong, things I worried would worry her. And every time, she would listen closely and be utterly unfazed. She was always gently and sweetly unflappable. It was almost overwhelming to be loved like that, so intensely, with no worry and with complete trust in me. There are so many things I could say about how much she affected me and who I've become. Too many to say or even think about right now. But her love was always at the center of it. It was such a structuring force in my life. I cannot believe how lucky I was to be her granddaughter.
Pearl Levine was born in New York City on February 1st, 1928, to immigrant parents Sarah and Abraham Halperin from Ukraine. Pearl grew up primarily in Red Bank, New Jersey, much younger than her two older brothers, Mayor and Jack. It was not an easy childhood. She suffered from severe asthma and was often too sick to attend school regularly. Her brothers helped to homeschool her. The family relocated to Lynn, Massachusetts to access better medical care, where she attended high school, graduated class Victorian in 1946, and studied at Simmons College biology and chemistry, graduating in 1952. I think about being too sick to attend school, and I think few people would have looked at Pearl then and imagined she would live to be 98 years old with her feet in the water on the last day. I think there was an unexpected gift within those difficult years because she did not spend so much time at home. Pearl did not absorb many of the assumptions and conventions that govern and limit other people's lives. She simply never learned that certain things were impossible. Pearl's mother was a talented seamstress. They would go to stores and Pearl would look at different things and say, I like the sleeves on that one and the collar on this one. And she would describe and design the clothes and her mom would make them. And long before it was common for girls to wear pants, Pearl told her mom, I want pants. And so her mom made her pants. I don't think she ever learned that girls weren't supposed to be scientists either. Convention did not have authority over her. As a young woman, money was tight, and her older brothers taught her how to be a lab technician. I think there was a laboratory in the garage. and she learned to be a phlebotomist. I don't think you had to get certified back in those days. Concerning, but it was to help ends meet, which brings me to a really extraordinary love story. A blind date was arranged with a young man named Sam Levine, and during the date, Pearl turned to Sam and asked, "Hey, what's your blood type?" And Sam said, I don't know. And most people, I think, at that point would have changed the subject and moved on to other things, but Pearl said, well, we can solve that right away. And took him to work and drew his blood and typed it. And to all of the young people who are listening, I know that there are dating apps and personality tests and algorithms. Pearl had a centrifuge. And it worked. Years later, when the children asked about the romance, she reportedly just sort of shrugged and said, this seemed like it was going to work out. I understand Sam never officially proposed. They simply found each other and built a life together. They were married on June 21st, 1953, and Pearl's mother made the wedding dress. In 1960, Sam and Pearl moved south to Durham just a few months ago. Michael Gross recalled at this same bema at Sam's funeral how Sam Gross and Sam Levine were part of a very early wave of Jewish scientists who came to North Carolina seeking job opportunities unavailable in the Northeast due to quotas on how many Jews could be hired, and how they built an extraordinary and close-knit Jewish community that we are heirs of. Names like Gross, Kirshner, Shim, Hackle, Siegel, Lakin, Rosenthal, Blum, Lack, Alexander. Forgive me, I'm sure there are others. They were Solalim, pioneers. There wasn't much Jewish infrastructure here then. Sam worked at what was called the Research Triangle Institute that preceded Research Triangle Park. And RTI was one building in Durham on Bacon Street. What sort of place is that for a nice Jewish boy to work? It is also said that you couldn't get sour cream in Durham in those days. And Bubby Pearl always said that everything that is good is better with sour cream. Some people were bitter about how remote and thin Durham felt compared with Jewish life up north. As Kenny said, Sam and Pearl embraced fully the life that they could create here, and what a life they built. At Bethel, Pearl was never someone who sought recognition or titles. She wasn't interested in being at the center of things, but she showed up. She volunteered in the kitchen and raised money wrapping presents at Northgate Mall at Christmas time. She went to the Evans house for Hadassah and came to Shabbat services nearly every week after Sam died. She worked quietly and behind the scenes and sustained community. And she created a home. Again and again, the kids used that word. Home was the dining room table over tea on Ward Street. It was a place where everyone felt safe, where people were welcomed where you would go when the world felt upside down and you needed to put it back in perspective. Cynthia talked about how whenever life felt overwhelming, a conversation with her mom somehow made the world feel manageable again. Beth spoke about the comfort of just calling and talking every single evening. Rachel said that what she'll miss the most is having someone who loved her completely, believed in her completely, never doubted that her life would be okay. According to the Jewish liturgy, the first words we say upon waking in the morning is we thank God and we say to God, Rabba emunatecha. We're saying to God, how great is your faith in us? You gave us another day. And Pearl didn't think, by the way, that she got the God gene. She didn't feel so spiritual, but she gave so many people this deep faith in themselves that they were exactly who they were supposed to be. And she did that, as Kenny said, not just for her own family. When we first started our phone call, Kenny said, I wondered as a child if people liked me or maybe they just liked my parents so much. She was a mom for so many people, and it is very fitting that this is Pride Month and that a pride flag hangs outside Beth El this month, and that tomorrow we will celebrate Pride Shabbat in this place. Pearl's love was larger than conventional boundaries of family. Kenny is gay, and long before that acceptance was easy, Pearl and Sam opened their hearts and their home. And their children all spoke of LGBTQ friends who found in Pearl a mom when their own families couldn't fully accept them. And she attended same-sex weddings and welcomed people as there were, and as you heard, gave away brides and grooms whose parents couldn't. She didn't do any of that because it was controversial. It was because she had spent her life asking a different question, not what does everybody else do, but what is right. There is an extraordinary story that when her beloved older brother struggled to accept Kenny's sexuality, Pearl wrote him a letter. Her position was clear. If you love your family, you accept your family. And that was Pearl. She never stopped growing. I know it may not seem that way height-wise, but you may think that Pearl got smaller, but she actually got larger. In her 90s, she was making new friends, trying new things, learning, exercising, going to the gym, remaining curious about the world and the people around her. Alon Tal, who is a friend of the family and has been a member of Knesset in Israel and a friend of this community, wrote, Mrs. Levine somehow represents everything that was good about my childhood. and the world to which my parents introduced me in Durham. Friends you can always rely on, the importance of living in a Jewish community to provide life with stability and meaning, how family is at the foundation of everything, and there is almost always a bright side that can be found, especially if you go visit the good people on Ward Street. He talked about how Pearl never surrendered to cynicism. She saw sadness and experienced loss, but remained optimistic, ethical, interested in people, and deeply present to life. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of 98 years, not simply that she lived a long life, but that she remained alive. Go put your feet in the water. And treasure the miracle. The Hebrew name Penina means pearl, a precious jewel formed over time. It is an apt name. The wisdom, compassion, strength, and generosity that people experienced in Pearl were not accidental. They were formed slowly over nearly a century of paying attention to what matters most: family, friendship, community, justice, loving people as they are. We have lost another one of our imahot, another of our community's matriarchs. May Pearl's memory continue to be a blessing in the lives of her children, Beth and Kenny and Cindy and Amy, and her grandchildren, Rachel and Avi and Sam and Adam, and in the lives of the countless others who were blessed, so blessed, to be welcomed into her circle of love. Pearl Levine, Penina Bat Avraham B'Sara, died on June 2nd, 2026, 17th of Sivan, 5786, at Emerald Isle, surrounded by her family. Yehi Zichra Baruch. May her memory be our blessing, and we say, Amen. In a moment, I'm going to ask the community to rise, and we will recite a memorial prayer, after which the pallbearers will come forward to escort the coffin from here to the hearse. The family will follow behind the coffin, and the community is invited to follow after. We're going to make our way to the cars and the procession to the Durham Hebrew Cemetery for interment. There will be Shiva. People are welcome to come at 9 p.m. on Saturday nights after Shabbat. The service will be a quick Havdalah and start at 9:30 p.m. There'll be another service at 7 p.m. in the living room at the Forest at Duke. And then Shiva Minyanim, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. at the home of Beth Levine. I'll also just say, as we provide love and comfort, sometimes the hugs can be a little tight. Beth doesn't want to have to see a chiropractor, all of this, so make sure you are hugging gently as you hug. Please rise. El Male Rachamim שוכן במרומים. המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה. במעלות קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר הגיע מסירים את נשמת פנינה בת שרה ואברהם, שהלכה לעולמה בגן עדן תמנוחתה. אנא בר הרחמים הסתירה בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, צור בצור חיים את נשמתה. אדוני, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום המשכבה, ונאמר Amen. We ask God, who is the source of all compassion, to help us remember with love and compassion the life of Pearl Levine. And because Pearl dwells in the eternity that is within us and among all of us, we know and pray and hope that she continues to dwell in the eternity that is beyond us. And let us say, Amen. We invite the pallbearers to please come forward.